As you know, I've been talking about these preppers, talking about stockpiling versus off-grid living self-sustainingly. I get a lot of people saying, well, the preppers are teaching me how to prep and stockpile because I live in the city. Well, I did this little demonstration at the beginning of the video to show in the city, you're not going to have that capability of walking out on your back porch and shooting a firearm. I would imagine that most municipalities would consider that illegal, and if they don't, it's extremely dangerous to just go out on your back porch and start shooting something. But here, I go out my back porch and I go down into a valley, so then it comes back up in the hill on the other side of the creek. So as long as I'm shooting downhill, I'm totally safe. Of course, you don't want to shoot up in the air. That's just, well, that's dangerous. Our president tells everybody to shoot in the air. It's actually against the law in most municipalities. And the reason I bring this up is because I always say that you have to have, in order to survive, an SHTF, like the preppers keep talking about. You got to have food, water, shelter, and defense. In the city, if you're stockpiling like preppers are telling you to, you'll have at least some length of time of food. It's not indefinite, and my definition of SHTF is long-term. 6+ years. It's unlikely you're going to have 6 years worth of food, but assuming you have that much food, you got a basement that's just stockpiled full of food. So you got the food and the water. I'll even go with you got enough water. Unlikely though. I seriously doubt you have enough water. The only way to have enough water is if you got a continuous supply, like a well or a natural spring or even a creek. So in the city, most likely not going to have that. And I know, I used to live in a municipality. It was actually a village. It had 100 people in it, and it had city water. I couldn't get water anywhere else. I had one of those old 15-foot hand pump wells. I mean, I could have gotten water out of that, but there was times it would go dry, so you wouldn't get a lot of water, but it does replenish, and it was dirty. But in the end, you might be able to get water. So I'll give you, you got food, water, and then shelter. Okay, you have shelter now. So according to my definition of what you need for an SHTF, you've got the 3 of the 4 right now. And so that makes you feel pretty comfortable. But in order to survive, you got to have 4 out of 4. And you don't have a quarter of what you need. Defense. Well, Rob, I got firearms. I live in the city, I got firearms. Well, that may be true. But one of the things I get in my comment section all the time about talking SHTF is the hordes of people that are going to come and get you. And I've said this before. The hordes of people are not going to come down here. Not from the city. It just takes too much energy. By the time they got here, they'd be dead. There's no reason to come to my location. I don't live in a farming community. There's just no reason to come here. They're not going to come here for my 14 chickens and my 300 jars of food. It'd be gone in a matter of minutes with 300 people. Where are they going to go? Well, first place everybody's going to go in an SHTF is to the grocery store. They're going to ransack the grocery stores. We've seen this all the time during hurricane events. They mob the grocery stores. Well, heck, even in rioting situations, they mob the grocery stores and the malls and all that. So that's where they're going to go first. Well, after a couple weeks, probably 3 days, I would guess, after all the grocery stores are empty, 3 days after the grocery stores are empty, they're going to come to your house. How much ammunition do you have? I don't know if it's really realistic to believe that you're going to have this horde of people all at once trying to come in while you're shooting at them. But it's going to be very difficult to defend. If you have enough people in your house where you can get all 4 walls covered of your house, maybe you might have a shot if you got enough ammunition. They're also going to do trickery things, and they're going to send their kid in alone, and so you're not even going to know who this kid belongs to. The kid's going to come to your door. Hi, can I have some food? I'm really hungry. Come on, come in, it's cold. So the kid comes inside, unlocks the back door when you're not looking, and mom and dad and 50 of his friends come in and take your house over. It's going to be pretty difficult to defend it because they just snuck in. You don't have the defense. The other thing I keep thinking about is wintertime. In the country, I got all this. This is all my heat. Now, you know, I got a retirement plan of 15 years worth of firewood. That's my retirement plan. If SHTF were to happen now, that would get me to 65 years old. Well, I don't have enough. I probably live to 70, 75 maybe. So I would have to start cutting down some of these trees, but I got it. I don't have a chainsaw, obviously, because it's SHTF and there's no gas. But I could use an axe, some hand saws, and we got those manual splitters and the mauls that we can use, which we do use. So we're well practiced, and we get another, well, 3 trees would get us a year for 5 to 10 years. And I got plenty of trees here to do that. The thing I find interesting is when I talk about air conditioning, people will say, oh, I gotta have air conditioning, gotta have air conditioning. Can't live without air conditioning. But when I talk about heat in the wintertime, oh, I can live without heat. I can just cover up more, I'll be fine. That's great. It's not you I'm worried about. It's the water that you stored. It's going to freeze. Everything you try to do is going to be 1,000 times more difficult in the cold, because you got to deal with everything being frozen. Your canned food's going to freeze. Your stockpiles are going to freeze. Everything's going to freeze. So you got to have heat. Well, in the city, you might be able to stockpile some propane, but how much propane are you going to be able to stockpile? You might be able to get a buddy heater that can warm one room. But I know we ran a buddy heater a couple times last year, and that in our tiny house, which is just a little bit bigger than a bedroom, and it went through propane. Well, if I'd used it full time, I didn't use it full time because I had a wood heat. So I would use a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours in the evening. It would run out within a week and a half. So imagine running that every day, trying to keep your stockpile warm. These little 20-pound tanks, you'd run out in a couple days. So how much can you stockpile? But if you had propane, a 500-gallon propane tank. So going back to the defense real quick. So you had food, water, and shelter. But you lost defense, so you lost your food, water, and shelter. You're going to be driven out. Don't get me wrong, the people that drove you out are also going to be driven out, and they'll be driven out. And then you don't have, like I said, heat, and I think heat's critical. And I consider heat part of shelter. So once you lose your heat, you don't have shelter either. So realistically, the only thing you really had was water and food. Well, you're going to have to, what do they call it? Bug out. That's what these preppers call it. They're going to bug out. So you got to have your bug out bag. Well, you're not going to be able to carry that food and water that you've stockpiled. First of all, you're going to lose it. But if you could carry it, you're going to lose it. So where are you going to bug out to? Well, you're going to start heading to the country, right? But you're going to really struggle, even if you make it to the country. And let's assume for a minute that you're right. These folks that keep telling me that people are going to come to my home, take everything I have. So let's just assume you're right, and you're going to come to my home and force me out somehow because my defense isn't good enough. Even though I got booby traps all around the yard and I'm well defended. Let's say you get past them and you drive me out. Now you have my home. You got my firewood. You got my chickens. But do you now have the skills to actually do any of it? Are you going to be able to butcher a chicken? Some people might be able to say, yes, I can butcher a chicken. So you've got to overcome a lot of hurdles before you do that. You got to get to my location, expending all that energy. Remember, you don't have any food. You don't have any water. You don't have any heat. You don't have any defense, or very little defense. You can't carry that much weaponry to defend yourself for the 100 or 200 miles. I think the closest city to me is 200 miles, big city. So you're gonna have to travel 200 miles to get to me, to drive me out, and you're gonna use a ton of ammunition trying to get me out, plus all the ammunition you're gonna need to defend yourself while you're traveling. It's gonna be a real chore. So these are what the preppers are telling you to do. Stockpile, 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 and you're gonna be great. But if you do decide you're gonna travel because you realize my prepping strategy, you know, the one that you've been using to use with all the prepper advice, so now you got to bug out. Well, don't travel during the day. It would be suicide to travel during the day. You'd be completely exposed. So you got to travel at night without lights, So you're going to just have to feel your way around and try to figure it all out. And you're going to want to stay undercover. You're going to want to travel in the farmlands. Instead of being on the road, you're going to want to be off the road. And you're going to come across creeks. And that's what you need in your bug out bag that they talk about. Is what can you do while you're at the creek or the lake or the little river? Well, there's food in there. So during the day, it's going to be very dangerous to be at that river. You can't be there because other people are going to be there. So at night, you need to throw in a drop line into the water with a fishing hook on it, some bait, and let it do its thing. So you're not going to travel that night. You're going to be trying to get food. You're going to try to regain your energy. And so when morning comes, you pull the fish out that you caught. Hopefully you caught some. And that'll give you enough energy to travel another day or two. There's water there. So you're going to need like a life straw. So now I've got two things in your bug out bed. Water, life straw, and your defense, whatever you can carry. So there's three things. So you're going to use your life straw to suck water out of the streams and lakes and rivers, whatever you can find. And then you're going to get to my house. And you're going to have to come up with a strategy to defeat me. Because remember, I just showed you. It's going to be kind of hard to defeat me. Again, I can practice during non-SHTF situations how to defend my home. You're going to be learning this on the fly. You're going to be trying to figure this out when you get here. You're going to be strategizing. You're going to try to figure out my booby traps. Are you going to be able to find my booby traps? Maybe, maybe not. Once you get past my booby traps, you got to figure out how to surround my house. I got a 360-degree view out of my house. Got huge windows out of each side. And we live in a tiny house, so there's even an advantage there. So you're going to have to come up on my back porch to get into the house to gain entry. Right there, I pick you off. See, folks out here, they are thinking about these things. And we just think about it on a daily basis because we have to. We don't have police in our area where we can call and say, hey, there's somebody on our back porch. When I call police, it's going to be a 40-minute trip for them to get out here. Practice what you preach. Preppers don't. If you're seriously concerned about SHTF, it's time for you to get out of this city. It's time for you to get out here and start practicing. So if you'll click that super thanks button down there, I really appreciate it. So hope I can inspire you to not be fooled by the fools, so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.